That's my line. And we
I
are live. Welcome. Tuesday evening, Trampled Underfoot Podcast time. What's going on in the wonderful world of Miami?
Man, this place is hopping. This is the place to be. There's no place on earth better by any stretch of the human ability to think and put like concrete and abstract thoughts together that one would ever want to be and wake up to.
Okay. I almost believed you.
I have a British buddy called we call him JP, short for Jamie Page, and he's got a woodworking channel, and he came here to visit from England. He's a British bloke, and he was like, when he thought of Miami as, Miami Vice, CSI Miami, people parading down the streets, girls in bikinis, and just the whole thing, palm trees, and the palm trees are true. In fact, the bikinis are true too, but most of the bikinis attached with the palm tree scenario occurs in one area by the ocean, which typical Miami folks don't wander about there because they're doing what people across the country and the world do, which is live their own, their lives, the ebb and flow of normal this and that. But anyways, so
it was the same way in Hawaii. If you wanted to see the movie or TV version of Hawaii, you went down to Waikiki. And the funny part about it is it was 99% tourists who were there to see the Hollywood version of Hawaii. So, it was a bunch of pale people who hadn't been in the sun for a while, looking at pale people who hadn't been in the sun for a while. But don't get me wrong, there were bikinis all over the place. But usually they were on pale people who hadn't been in the sun for a while. So, because the locals, unless you work down there, more often than not, the locals just didn't go down there because there were other beaches that they went to where the tourists weren't,
Yeah.
So
exactly. So how about you in your neck of the woods? What's going on in Oregon?
Oh, it's all about digging holes. It's right now.
I can confirm that.
Oh man, I've got a major project going on and I've been trenching for too long, and I'm starting to get to where I can start filling those trenches back in. So doing French drain and running electrical conduit and things like that. Nothing glamorous, exciting. I'm in the dirt all the time.
That's fun though. That sounds fun.
The first week was fun. After that, it gets to be kind of old.
You're building on previous rough work, and then just building to your till you reach that final goal, and that's I've always liked that. It is fulfilling.
Let's just say it's a process. So I think the hardest parts are behind me now, but that remains to be seen. I still got a lot of gravel to move and things like that, but I can do that at my leisure. And after I get these trenches filled in, I can go rent a front end loader and move that stuff. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, I did want to address the issue of that today. We tried twice to set up. I set it up last night, and then today the show, because you can preset this up. And by the way, we're live on YouTube every Tuesday evening, 6:30 p.m. East Coast time, and 9:30. Oh shoot! I did it again.
That's 2 weeks in a row. That's okay.
We can snap. We can snip it here and resume.
Okay.
That's where we'll do the thing that you did in this last one, which was good. It was very well done, by the way.
Thank you.
The real thing, the real way to say it is that we go live every Tuesday, 9:30 Eastern and 6:30 Pacific Coast, West Coast time here on YouTube under Trampled Underfoot Podcast. And we also have a show, clip it again. We also have a page over on Facebook, which is called Trampled Underfoot Podcast on Facebook, and we'll post things that are relevant to the show over there, including like pictures and whatnot. And the curious thing is that for the past 4, 5, 6 or more episodes over on YouTube, they give us the option of adding that little window picture cover and titling it prior and this and that. But today we had another issue. What happened? I tried last night, and then what's going on?
Well, you set it up last night, and then I got up this morning and I didn't see it. So I thought, well, maybe it slipped your mind. And
I knew it. I knew that's what you thought. How dare you?
It happens. Life
Not to me, buddy.
Life is what happens while you're busy making other plans. Don't know what happened. Maybe Vigo got out of the yard and you had to jump up off the computer and Rennie got him. And
you're throwing this on
whatever.
The most decent little doggy in the world.
You and I both know that if that gate was open, he would be in the neighbor's yard whizzing on his palm tree. That's a dog's job. Anyway, so I figured maybe it slipped your mind. So I didn't see it, and I didn't see it, and I didn't see it. And so I zapped you a message saying, hey, did you set it up? And then you told me, yeah, you had, but somehow, and this still mystifies me, somehow a live stream we had not done yet violated YouTube's terms of service.
That's right, folks. You heard it here.
Only we could violate the terms of service with a live stream we haven't done yet.
Because we're that wild.
We're that good. In fact, Steve sent me a message saying, how did you guys violate the terms of service when you haven't even done the show yet? And I just said, we're that good. We are that good. So, yeah. And so I tried it. And sure enough, same thing happened about a year. So we don't know if it was the artwork Eloy came up with, which was innocent. I mean, it's kind of, it was kind of thought provoking. I mean, it was a man in a jail cell and it looked like a woman coming to visit.
Yeah. And we're not even going to mention it because apparently something triggered the situation. So we're not going to give you the title until you can see. In fact, what I'll do is I'll post the actual cover page on Facebook in our Facebook Trampled Underfoot podcast page, which you can go and look. I'll post it. And that it was either the title or the imagery.
Yeah, it was one of those two because I just named this. I set it up again and I just named this episode 108. And then we used our regular channel logo for the artwork, and that's it. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't know what they had a problem with, whether it was the artwork or the title.
I don't know, man.
Hey, they have their reasons. I don't know. It's not ours to question why. It's ours, but to do a podcast.
It could be automated, like,
Yeah. That's probably the case because I'm sure they don't have people running around checking out. Oh, I don't like the title of that live stream.
Well, I posted at least the image on there, and it's unfortunate, but there is an automation thing. I did read that there's a new automation thing somewhere. I was trying to look for solutions and all that, but not to drag that whole concept, along. That whole thing along, but the title itself, if you take anything literally, if you take everything literally, then you're missing out on the nuances of the back and forth and ideas, abstract, and maybe even humor, and all these things that are part of the human experience. So you can't. It's not reasonable. If you want a healthy balance of information and content and stuff, to be just set on the literal.
Yeah. And it was a play on the old, at least what I got out of it.
That's exactly what it was.
When I saw it, at least what I got out of it was one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Plain and simple.
You know, but you can replace those words. One man's Volkswagen is another man's Lincoln.
Yeah.
You know? One man's radio flyer is another man's dump truck. I mean, you can play that game forever. It's just, I guess they decided that those two words that you did use did not go together. Yeah. And that's the only explanation I can think of, because I think the artwork was innocent. I really do. I don't think it had anything to do with the artwork. I
mean, it was a dude in a it was one of those old retro covers, and you can see it over there on the Trampled on Facebook. But it was just a dude in a loincloth or something in a cage in some sort of dungeon, and a girl, a lady standing outside of the cage, you know, like surprised or trying to help him out. And it's just one of those like retro sort of like not detective I don't know what kind of like adventure, I guess, action.
Maybe, I don't know. Was it, you know, would you call that artwork for a novel or something like that? Or
it was for a comic book.
Was it for a comic book? Because I could see that being an album cover. You know?
Yeah.
Well, you know, this is how my mind rolls. Okay. This is my brain on mark. Okay. If you took that artwork that you did, and folks, you're going to have to go over to the Trampled Underfoot podcast page on Facebook to see it. If you took that artwork and you were going to use that as an album cover, what would you title that album?
Of Mice and Men.
Of Mice and Men?
I don't know. I guess so.
Okay.
It has no reasoning behind it, but that's the beauty of it. If you see, remember those ink blots that a psychiatrist, yeah, and that kind of stuff is brilliant, man, because you don't know, like the things that don't seem to go together are always an interesting, you know, just things that don't match, and then boom, you put them to match, and then people derive their own meanings of something, and the idea is not to discover what the meaning was necessarily for someone else, but the thought processes that triggers in your mind and the imagery that you come up with. So the purpose is sort of like everybody plays along, because there's no real, you know.
Based on that woman's position and looking and seeing the guy's position, I would have named that album, Was It Something I Said?
Yeah, because she could be saying, no, actually, it kind of looks like she's trying to talk to him. He's in a cage, and she's scared that the guards will come or something like that. It kind of gives that, if you want it to be a little bit more,
a little bit dark. It's a little dark, a little, not, I wouldn't say morbid, but it's a little dark.
But it's just a cartoon thing. Like, dude, there's a band on YouTube with their name splashed on it called,
yeah, I don't think you can get away with that.
What did I call it? Savage what did I let me see if I, okay, it's called Thunder something. And so just so the insinuation, if you were to take it literally, I mean, all sorts of bad stuff could go wrong. You know, it's just, you can't do that. You can't think in terms.
But see, that's and this is an interesting conversation, because it's bringing about other thoughts. That's the subjective thing about art, because if you and I both look at the same painting, we're going to come up with different imagery. You know, the image itself is innocent.
Yeah,
but you're going to come up with different emotions than I'm going to come up with, and you're going to think different things than I'm going to think. So if you try to go by just the words without a context, without an emotion attached to it, without a conversation to base it off of, just about anything, what I'm saying right now could be construed as offensive or defensive or even filthy dirty. It's all in the mind, you know, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And that's exactly what it is. It's all in the mind of the person listening to my voice right now and deciding for themselves what I mean.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I know what I mean. I think I know what I mean.
But see,
people spit it out. But
another way to reiterate that in a different, from my exactly what you mean. If we're all human, or so it seems, but we all come at something, a problem or a conversation or visual stimuli, audio stimuli. We come at things, the things that come into our field of understanding, of our perception. We come at it with subconscious and conscious bias if you're good enough to whatever that means. But if you're aware enough that we do carry luggage with us, then you're aware of your positioning, where your quadrant in this world, that you come with certain sort of preconceptions already that can sort of nudge what you're looking at, so you can define it. Some people define a thing for what it is, and then plus whatever your experiences are along with it, and then that nudges it slightly. So like if you and I are, it's exactly what you were saying before. I'm just like looking at it but if you and I share a visual thing that we're looking at, like you said, we might agree on like 90% of it, but it's that 10%, as an example, that could sway the situation into some wild territory.
It also depends on whether or not you have a personal agenda going into it. If you are looking for something, if I said to you, man, my dog has fleas, you might take that at face value and say, well, you know what? When my dog had fleas, I did this, this, and this, and it got rid of them. And I'd say, okay, thank you very much. Whereas another person might come along and say, what, you don't like cats?
Yeah. Just
just completely out of left field. So if you have an agenda, that's going to influence everything. And I don't know what that has to do with YouTube deciding that the title or artwork or both were inappropriate. But here we are, folks. Did you miss us?
No, it has everything to do with it, because what we're suggesting is that that there's an automated feature that will process information and say, oh, this, yes. Oh, wait, this goes here. This goes there. And so that's a possible thing that occurred. But there's a human review that might be occurring. And that human comes along with all that baggage apart from the script that they're given to follow. And so in that, the most benign thing can be freaking thrown in the trash.
Well, but I tend to agree with you, and I tend to think that it's more likely an automated thing, because a person would have looked at that and went, well, maybe it isn't wholesome, but there's nothing wrong with it. Whereas automated machines can't really, computer programs and computer analysis and voice analysis and, all the analytics and all of the algorithms and everything can't process nuance. So you can't program sarcasm. Not yet. They're getting close.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of things that are missed in text. And I think that that's a cause of a lot more angst and anger than a lot of people are willing to admit.
Yeah, I think so too, because it's impossible. We are the reason that we are impossible to figure out. I don't know if impossible, but there's so many variables, is that not only are we a brain with mathematical calculations on everything from like flowers to paintings and philosophy and this and that, but we're also sensory, and we're also interactive with others, and there's also unknown things that happen that can change. It's just a computer doesn't. There's no, in a million years. I mean, this is me saying this now in 2020, but I don't see. We got to be careful, because what we don't see, and we think, we don't want to end up, which is a good conversation. I hope. Let me see if, without me saying more, is it even possible that you know where I was going with this? I just want to test this out.
Oh, I just wanted to say that you're forgetting one key factor, and that is we also have emotion.
And we have emotion as well. But damn it, I wanted to see, because there was something that happened. But see, I don't want to give you no more clues. I thought we were here, Mark, but you're very much in the moment, and I was.
Yeah, I'm extremely in the moment. I'm just saying, because we were talking about computer algorithms and stuff like that, and I was listening to what you were saying, and I was waiting for you to say emotion in there also, which computers cannot have.
I'm going to give it to you, the thing that I was hoping that you would guess. Last week, see, this is the thing, and this is going to just set us off on another thing, and I'm worried about that because I kind of like this computer situation, but it's the appropriate time to do so, because I thought of it and I told you. I hope you think. Last week, you shared a video with me.
Uh-huh.
Does that oh, your sounds more like
But I'm trying to remember which one.
You shared a video with me that was highly interesting.
I remember which one now. I remember which one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, because I can say a lot about it, but it triggered a lot. I want you to go ahead.
It was basically one of those things that was in my suggested, and I don't know why, because I've never talked about this or thought about it. But it was a video. Oh my God, I'm trying to remember the name of the channel. The channel name is Voices of the Past. Mm-hmm. And they took an article, and he just read the article. But he talked about, it was an article from Ladies' Home Journal from 1901.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about, was it 1901?
It was early 19. It was like right there in the cuffs of switching over to the. It was in the 1900s, but it wasn't like 1920 or 1930.
I downloaded the PDF of it, and it was 1901, December of 1901, in the Ladies' Home Journal, and it was titled "What Could Happen in the Next 100 Years."
Uh-huh.
And it was basically, they surveyed a bunch of people who were on the cutting edge of society, science, technology, medicine, industry, transportation,
mm-hmm.
The domestic arts, if you want to put it that way. And they got their predictions about what we would see in the next 100 years.
Right.
And I linked Eloy to that video because I just thought it was cool. And in fact, I thought it was so cool. I went and I found that issue, and I do not remember where I found it. If I can find where I downloaded the issue, I will link it over on the Trampled Underfoot Podcast Facebook page.
It's well worth the, and so is the video.
And I will link the video on the Trampled Underfoot Podcast Facebook page.
To go back a few steps, the reason this all came out is that I was saying I don't want to be like that guy, because I was saying, that human beings, are much better because of all these, features we have, emotions and sensory, and plus the mathematics, than computers. And I was going to say in 100,000 years from now, not even 100,000 years from now, computers still won't be. Well, I don't want to be that guy, like that guy in The Thing, which did a way better job than I would probably do from this vantage point in saying what would happen in the future. And it was such a good place to break into this topic, because I think it should
I did not see where you were going. I did not see that you were headed in that direction.
No, and you know what? You know what the beauty is? Neither did I. It just
I didn't predict.
it just hey, squirrel, and then I just
exactly.
Well, yeah, but there's a reasoning, there's a method to the madness that happens, and you have to grab these things and these items that are appearing before they go. That magazine and that video, the guy did a great job in a few. He established a lot of good things that we do today, but broader, he said some kooky things, which for us now we would think, oh, that's ridiculous. But thinking about it, the guy was brilliant.
Yeah. For instance, they were basing things on the technology of the day and then running with it and pushing it to the limit. Like they were talking about in the next 100 years, and what they meant at that time was the year 2001.
Mm-hmm.
There would be high-speed passenger liners that could cross the Atlantic in a day. So you only spent one night aboard ship. You get on in New York, spend one night aboard ship, and the next morning you're docking in Europe somewhere. They were talking about airships. There was no talk about airplanes.
No.
There was no talk about space travel. But they were talking about trains that were capable of reaching 150 miles an hour. A lot of the predictions that they had came true, but a lot of them were way off the wall. It was interesting. What was more interesting to me was not the things they got wrong. What was more interesting to me was the things they got right, because they were right on several of them.
Yeah.
They said that, for instance, they said that by the year 2001, there will be from 350 to 500 million people in America. That is not very far off.
No.
We're at about 340 million, I believe. 320 to 340. This is a census year, 2020. We'll find out what the final numbers are soon.
But a lot of these things.
But they were pretty close.
You can calculate into the future and get a good prediction because of, how things multiply and whatnot. So there's things, because we tend to think, and we've talked about this, of ourselves as pretty darn freaking advanced and pretty darn man, we got a handle on, apparently not this year, but generally speaking, we're kind of modern, man. And those people back then, man, they sure were in the Middle Ages. They were in the Dark Ages, man. They didn't have it all together. But people back then, the calculations were amazing, and they may not have gotten a lot right, but they got a truckload right.
Yeah, they got quite a bit right. Yeah. They made a few predictions. They said that Nicaragua would apply to become a state. They would want to be admitted to the Union.
And they probably do.
And then Mexico would be next. But this would happen before the year 2001. In fact, they predicted that once Panama Canal was done, Nicaragua would want to be a state. Yeah. Well, that didn't happen. So they were off on quite a few of their predictions. But automobiles will be cheaper than horses. Well, they are. But more people were using horses, especially for agricultural work. And then there were using any kind of an internal combustion engine, any kind of a vehicle.
No, they weren't.
And they were predicting that farmers would own automobile hay wagons, truck wagons, plows, harrows, and hay rakes. Well, they do.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened a lot faster than within that 100 years.
Yeah.
So they got that part right. But then they said the horse in harness will be as scarce, if indeed not even scarcer, than is the yoked ox today.
And some people will keep horses for breeding and personal, if you remember that he said it.
Yeah, and there will be people that keep horses for pleasure, and that is the case.
Yeah.
It really is. That part did come true. So, they did get a bunch of things wrong. They predicted that we would drop the letters C, X, and Q from the English language because they're just not necessary.
That's great.
And I thought, well, what are you going to replace that with? I mean, I guess you could substitute a K for them, but
Yeah, you could.
I don't think so. They also said that there would be hot and cold air. I'm assuming for heating and air conditioning.
Yeah.
There would be hot and cold air pumped into people's homes in spigots like a faucet.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd open one faucet and you'd get cold air in the summertime, and that cold air would be produced in huge plants somewhere in town and then piped into your house. Never thinking about, personal heating and central heating and air conditioning for each home. Right. I would imagine, Ladies' Home Journal, it was written in New York. I would imagine these people are thinking about high-rise apartment buildings where you don't have your own heating and air conditioning system, outside in your yard or what have you. You do have central heat and air, but not like a single family home would.
Didn't they talk about pipes that would send you packages and whatnot?
Yes. And pneumatic tubes. You remember, I don't know if you remember the drive up at the bank where you'd put the check and your deposit slip in the little, I don't know, looked like a Pringles tube, and you put it in the machine, hit the button, and it shot down the tube and showed up in the bank. They and I saw a lot of people, a lot of different outlets predict that everybody would have a bunch of those in their homes. And you would put the money in something and you would zap it to the grocery store, and then the delivery boy would bring it, in an hour.
Which is great if you think about it. Well, no, it'd be great if you had like a window in your house, like a little drawer that is like a pantry drawer, and then you could just like feed it the money or credits, whatever, space credits, and then you ask for whatever, and then they shoot it through this tunnel all across the city. And then you just open, a little light turns green, you pull open, and there's your whatever, your brand new set of weights or whatever.
Yeah, we have something very similar to that, because they were going by the pneumatic tube thing. They didn't think about Amazon. Think about it. Yeah. We don't the check in the thing and put it in a pneumatic tube. We get online, push the buttons, credit card number, and it comes when FedEx feels like delivering it.
Dude, if this were the 1800s, you'd be ordering via mail from the cattle, and then one day you're sitting there on your rocking chair on your porch with your shotgun there leaning up against the side, and then a wagon will pull up with old man Duffy. He gets up, hey, how's it going, Mark? Hey, old man Duffy. Well, I got your package here, and that would be the Amazon back then.
Yep,
it's great.
They
you want some? I've got some whiskey in here. No, thanks. I'm going to go sleep at the hotel and take a dime bath.
Yeah. They also said that home-cooked meals would be a rarity because there would be food delivery services that would bring food, prepared meals to your home where you would eat, and then they would come back an hour later and pick up the dishes, take them back and wash them, and then deliver you order your meal for the next day and it would be delivered. Well, we kind of sort of have that, but people still like to cook. I mean, I don't think there will ever be an end to anything that truly gives people joy. And some people just like to cook. And so, some people think it's a chore. Some people prefer to eat out all the time or order for delivery or what have you.
Yeah.
But again, they were going by the technology and their way of life back then, where this was the dawning of the era where they thought robots were going to do all the menial labor and all of the tasks that we didn't want to do.
We are so far from that.
If you look back, well, not really. If you look back at some of the old newsreel footage, they said that by the 1960s or the 1970s, everybody would have a domestic robot in their house that would vacuum the floor. Well, we have the Roomba.
Meet George Jetson.
Yeah, we have the Roomba. So we do have a robot that will run around and vacuum the floor.
Right, but
we do have programmable lawnmowers that'll run around and mow the lawn and stay within a certain boundary. They're expensive.
Well, you can make the argument also, like in the 80s, we had the clapper, so you could turn and now we have Alexa, but it's like,
Yeah. So but this was the dawning of that era. This is just, the Time Machine. People were reading H.G. Wells and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea with Captain Nemo and the Nautilus and what have you. So it was a big adventure time, and they were looking to technology to eliminate all the mundane tasks that we all have to do every day, and they thought that everybody would have personal robots to take care of all that stuff. And we don't really. We still have to tell Alexa we want to do this, that, or the other, but we don't have the robot walking around the house folding the clothes and doing the ironing and things like that.
Let me set this up for you and see what you say. I don't know if this is going to, because this is, I consider it a tough thing. The question will come at the end of this brief interlude here. Okay. Apparently, for all of the history of mankind, as far as we know, mankind in the dark, sort of misty, dawn of history, pre-written, didn't have an exponential advance in technologies and this and that in the sense of what we have today. So you have this whole, eventually stone tools became, as far as we know, bronze, and then, it continued to the iron, and then, the wheel and this and that. And then at some point, closer to our time, within reason, right? Like a few, maybe a century, 2 centuries back, more so a century back, but let's say a century and a half back to 2 centuries, because inventions started to facilitate people's, needs, everyday people's. And then you have an exponential increase in technology, knowledge, sciences, day to day, until we have, I don't want to say crescendo, but that spike in that sort of mental graph, if you can picture it, of technology ever so, greatly increasing year after year currently, literally day by day. For most of humanity, there was no freaking apparent advance, like in the everyday to day. And then all of a sudden now we're like, so with that said, oh, you have something to say? Because I have the question at the end, but go ahead.
Go ahead. I don't want to end your role. You're good.
So, well, my question is going to be this. With that said, and looking at that guy in 1901, doing predictions 100 and something years in the future, or 100 years in the future, my question to you is, if you even want to tackle this, because this is I thought of it the other day, and I said, man, with what Mark shared, this would be a good. And then I started to try to think what I would think. I was like, dude, I am not as bold as that guy from 1901 to be able to, because it's so insane. So my question to you is, in 100 years from now, off the top of your head, certain things that you could predict now. And by the way, the reason this is hard is because, you're basically placing a bet that you're never going to be able to redeem the ticket for.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I'm 59 years old. I'll never know how right or wrong I've been.
Right. Well, so 100 years from now, in the year 2020, what is it? What would it be?
2120.
2120. Damn. Like, holy smokes! Like the freaking what's these people's name? The band from Canada. Damn. The three
Zager and Evans in the year 2525.
No, 2120 is the album.
2112 was Rush.
2112. So, but we're talking 2120. It's unfortunate, but whatever. If we would have done this in 2012, all right. So go. I mean, what would be your predictions if you want to tackle this? If not, we could just press forward.
On what subject? Because I mean, there are a ton of subjects. There really are a ton of subjects.
I want whatever you have at the top of your head that could. Okay, do you want me to name subjects so that's more concrete?
And see if I have something. Yeah.
Okay, let's try. Actually, it's better if we're more specific. So let's do that. I'll give you a few, and let's see how this works.
Okay.
First one, along the lines of entertainment, home entertainment.
I think the streaming service is, in fact, I think we're already seeing the death knells of the broadcast networks because, relatively speaking, there aren't that many people watching television anymore.
Nope.
So they're on the streaming services. I think that a couple of streaming services will have bought one another out, but their days are numbered as well. Because if you look at music, the way music is today, and we're already seeing this revolution with YouTube. If you look at the way music is today, where you can put four guys together in a room with a computer, which is not very expensive at all, and the correct software, and you can mix an album and you can create your own music and you can put it out there on your own, where you used to be at the mercy of renting studio space and hoping a record company would pick it up. Now people can put out their own music and sell just as many copies as any record company would. I think that home entertainment is going to go the same way. I think the days of the movie theater with our home theater systems getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, you can already go down and for less than $1,000 buy a 60-inch television screen and watch movies. I think theatrical releases will, I don't know that they'll come to an end, but they'll be few and far in between, and they'll be seen as nostalgic, quaint things. I think movie theaters are going to go away.
They'll be like penny arcades or something.
Yeah, there will still be some out there, but they won't be near as popular as they were.
Like vaudeville, like little vaudeville shows. Eventually, it'll just fizzle out.
I think with so many sources of information that we have now, I think network television will finally go away.
Thank goodness.
I really do. I think television is on the way out already. Now, there may be a resurgence, and there will be some diehards who want the quaint little TV thing.
Yeah.
But I think it will be long gone.
Yeah.
In 100 years, because it's less than 100 years old now. I mean, the automobile's been around longer than than television has. Yeah. Television is, as a practical means of media, television is only roughly about 70 years old.
Well, wait, so we had, for distribution of information, and we're talking about entertainment, we did have in a mass sort of where people could, plug in, let's say, radio, and then the TV. But we also had, of course, like, and we still do to some degree, like, for entertainment without that, newspapers and the telegraph and so on. So there's been means of
right. Right. But I think also with the resurgence of homegrown music, homemade music, you're seeing a lot more people get together for that kind of thing. And you put four people, I'll give you an example. My local guitar shop here, Tom's Guitars in Medford, Oregon, # not sponsored. They have every Saturday, they do a open bluegrass jam. And you don't have to play an instrument. You can just come in and sit on the couch and watch these guys play. And if you have an instrument and you're into bluegrass music, come on in, sit down and play. And that joint is packed. They don't serve any beverages. They don't serve any meals. The whole reason for doing it is to get people to come in, get interested in music, and maybe buy a guitar and book some lessons.
So, so I'm going to read a couple of the comments here because this did pop into during, as you were mentioning, a couple of people, Billy Burt and Jim Dockrell, I believe, maybe something there's going up. But mentioned the holodeck, like the Star Trek holodeck, where you walk in and there's a room. I can envision a room where you could load up or speak out the information of what you want, and you can. I want to be in Cancun right now, and it would create a virtual environment that's so real all around you. And these rooms would be, you'd purchase them. They'd come equipped in the better homes, or maybe all homes to some degree. And there's room enough to walk around. And so it would be an entertainment thing, just like you have virtual goggles now, but like without the virtual goggles all around you, something like that. So I could see that possibly occurring.
Yeah, that's a possibility because it only takes one company to make something like that commercially viable for two other companies to go, hey, that's a great idea, jump on the bandwagon, and then the price starts plummeting. And pretty soon, you don't even need a special room. It's just in your living room, where you can be, instead of sitting in your living room, you could be sitting on the beach in your favorite chair, having whatever adult beverage you prefer, and being entertained by a live band that's on this beach.
I could see people loading up Sally Barracuda and Juana Tijuana, at a nice little. I could, I could totally see the future possibilities of that.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember people in the 70s and early 80s saying, what is there left to invent? We've got everything we could possibly want. What else could there possibly be? Then along came the personal computer. Then the internet was released and opened up to the public, and we saw what was left to be invented.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're still getting it in dribbles. You were talking about that explosion of technology. It started when the Brits discovered steam power. They developed steam power, the rocket, the first steam locomotive, and then rail travel exploded. It came across the pond to the U.S., and the Transcontinental Railroad was opened, put the Pony Express out of business. Now, instead of it taking 6 months for a letter to get from the Oregon Territory back to New York, it would take 5 days, 4 days. Now it's instant. So yes, as the technology develops, it just keeps going up further, up higher and higher and higher. If you want to talk about technology, I think working on the superconductors, as they are trying to develop superconductors that do not require frigid temperatures of close to absolute zero. If they can develop a superconductor that would work at room temperature, I think you will see a major revolution in transportation, because it could possibly mean the end of the internal combustion engine. For transportation for you and me, it just wouldn't be needed anymore. It would be obsolete. It would be like the horse and buggy, because with a superconductor that could power a vehicle electrically, that you could use a battery, like the electric cars of today, but that superconductor power it instead of a turning motor. I mean, we're talking freight trains, we're talking truck transportation, the whole thing. That's a revolution in and of itself.
Maybe we'll use plutonium, like in you'll be able to go to the 7-Eleven and say, yeah, let me have 3 plutonium cartridges. Thanks.
Yeah, I don't think it would even need to get to that point. I mean, superconductors now require a lot of liquid nitrogen and even colder substances and a lot of power. But not only superconductors are odd because they can warp and bend a magnetic field. If you take 2 magnets and turn them north, north, south, south, they repel from one another.
Mm-hmm.
A superconductor magnet will not only repel, it'll repel to a certain point, and you could flip that magnet over, and it warps the magnetic field. It will stay connected to whatever it was. It won't repel away from it, but it'll repel enough to where that piece hovers.
Nice.
And you can find videos on YouTube of a person will take a superconductor magnet, cool it off with liquid nitrogen, put it on a little railroad track, a model railroad track, and it hovers above the track, and just smack it with their finger, and it just keeps going and going around this track until it finally warms up to where it loses its properties and sits down on the track. But if they ever find a superconductor that can work at room temperature or at, normal temperatures outside, then there's that entire revolution right there. I mean, that would mean basically the end of the internal combustion engine for personal transportation. Power production, I think we're going to be doing a lot more with wind and solar. Hopefully a lot more with hydroelectric, but there will always have to be a turbine spinning somewhere that can be controlled. And a wind turbine can't be controlled. You're at the mercy of the wind. But there will have to be a turbine spinning somewhere that can be sped up or slowed down to react to supply and demand, to react to demand. It has to be. I don't know. It can go in several different directions from there.
I could also, if I had to say what won't happen, what I think won't happen, using the Star Trek, since we talked about the holodeck, I don't think that people will be able to beam from one place to the other. I don't think that is possible.
I don't see that. I don't foresee that happening either. Because
you're taking matter, which is quite important to us when it's all packaged into our body, and you're just disintegrating it so you can transport it and then mathematically put it back together somewhere else. But I could be wrong about that.
Well, via what means? Are you, because, and that's something I've never understood about the whole Star Trek transporter and everything. Okay. You are disintegrating a human person and then reassembling them in another place.
It's a horrible.
Okay.
It's a great get out of jail trick.
But via what means? Are those particles traveling through space to get to this other area that you're beaming to?
They never tell us.
So it can go through metal. It can travel through the vacuum of space. It can go through atmospheres, and it can land on this other planet.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't see that happening. Yeah, I do, however, think that man will have visited Mars.
Really?
Yeah. That may or may not happen in our lifetimes, but I believe within the next 100 years that man will have visited Mars and will have returned to the moon.
All right. Let me ask you this. I've got something that's going to switch the thing because it's something I wanted to share with you, which is very weird. It's not weird on the surface, but it's incredibly disturbing. And I only was able to consume a little bit. I'll tell you now, but my question, boy, what was my question, dude? Because once I started thinking about what I wanted to talk about later, it's so disturbing that it made.
Well, then let's forget it. I don't like disturbing stuff like that. I don't like gross things. I don't like things where people get hurt. I don't like none of.
No, I remember the disturbing thing. I don't remember the thing prior to the disturbing thing. But the disturbing thing is, you have to understand. See, that's a good example of what we talked about in the beginning. I used a phrase in a particular combination of words that in you, without knowing, you took my word for it, and trust me, I think that it's good that you did. But think about what I projected to you. From my experience to you basically in a split second made in your mind calculations, and you said, well, wait a second, do we want this in our life? This is basically. But see, that's the amazing thing. That's what computers, I don't think, I hate to say it because I don't want to be that guy from, but wrong from 1900 and then say, but but I don't think that is, you can't put that in a nice little box and be able to control it and be able to reproduce
You
that.
can't. I can't remember the name of the website. There used to be a website. It may still be up. I don't know. But it was, and I think it was a subsidiary of Google, where you were actually having a conversation with a computer and you could ask it questions and it would answer you. And it was an attempt, it was an experiment in seeing how well a computer could carry on a text conversation. You typed in a question, it would answer. And, hi, hello, how are you today? I'm doing fine. Do you have a question for me? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And try to carry on a conversation with it, because the way I've heard it described is real artificial intelligence will have been achieved when you can carry on a 30-minute conversation with a computer and not know you are talking to a computer.
Yeah, that would be interesting. They're working on it, though, because they need the vast, I guess, hard drive folders and files that the computer can mathematically reach into when a series of words are spoken to the computer, that it can regurgitate back something equivalent. So it would take an enormous amount for it to be able to do what we do, even when we're wrong. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, so let's say we're talking and I can return information to you. I could be dead wrong about everything I'm saying, but for some reason, even though it works, even though, let's say I may be wrong about whatever I'm coming back at you on, but it works because you're understanding that I'm trying to get there, but I'm not making it. So we're working with it and stuff, but computers can't really do that.
You're speaking to me and my brain is processing the words that you're speaking.
Yes.
And I can also process your body language. I can process your emotion. I can tell that you're smiling. I can tell that you're angry. So there's a lot of things that you lose in just simple text. Yeah. And if you want an exercise in that, the very next YouTube video you watch, turn on the closed captions and just see. You can tell immediately if this is just the auto-translated closed captions that YouTube puts up automatically, or if the person actually either themselves or had somebody else go in and edit those closed captions.
You can tell.
You can immediately tell, because we don't always enunciate 100% perfectly. And it does a very good job. I close caption all of my videos. I take their automatic closed captions. I download that file. I go through it with a word processor and clean it up, put it back on the YouTube, and then go adjust the timeline so that it's, as I'm saying something on camera, it's coming across in the closed caption.
Right.
And the number of things it gets wrong is sometimes comical, but I've noticed it's getting less and less comical and more, it's getting better.
They have processing power, dude. They have the technology, and they are, exponentially learning from humans.
Right. But we all speak differently. And if I enunciate something a little sloppily, like just the word sloppily.
Yeah.
It could print SLOPALEE.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't know the word sloppily, SLOPPILY. So, there's a little bit of, it does its best based on its vocabulary and based on what it thinks you said. Whereas you can process what I'm saying right now. It may or may not be able to.
Yeah. And by the way, I do want to say, I don't know if you've seen it, if you guys out there have seen it. Funniest thing. 2 Scottish guys walk in to an elevator. Tell me if you've seen it. Stop me if you've seen it. And they just want to go to the next floor or whatever. And it's a brand new automated talk to it and tell it what. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't, but I know where it's going.
You have to see it. And they talk to it, and the computer, could you please enunciate? Could you please speak louder? And they're trying with their Scottish accent, and they can't get it. And they're frustrated. They get on each other's shoulders to hit the thing. They're stuck in this, and then other people come. It's funny as hell. I will look for it. I hope I find it, and I will link it.
I'd like to see it. I did see a similar video when Siri first came. When Siri first came out on the Apple, on the iPhones, and you could talk to your iPhone and it would look up stuff for you on the internet and what have you, or order things online. Yeah. There's a comedian by the name of Gavin McGinnis who he's from Canada. His father was off the boat Scottish, and Gavin does an excellent Scottish accent. I mean, excellent. I mean, he lived with one his entire life. And he's up there with the phone in this thick Scottish brogue trying to talk to Siri, going, "Look here, you cow. I want a jammy dodger." And just going on and on and on and on. And the final end of it is Siri still having some problems, you know.
Well, you see, that's it's funny as heck, but see, that's the thing. There's also that part of it, like linguistically, some people may say something, you know, and then the computer can only work with the way the programmer, you know, enunciates the words or whatever you want to say. So I think the best neutral accent would be a West Coast, like we've talked about, like West Coast sort of accent would be the most neutral.
But that's why I say that most accents over in the UK are affected. They're false. They're fake. They're phony. Because if you listen to those people sing, they have no accent. It's neutral. It's just like me from the West Coast of the United States.
Well, no, but see, that's not okay. So, you know, I still have to get to what I wanted to get to, but see, I'm gonna have to disagree with. I'll disagree with you on this. So the way they talk, I believe, is real.
Yeah.
But their singing is the one that they're sort of mimicking the American sort of like R&B / whatever this might be, because they're reaching towards that. And since you're working with English already, you know, and they're hearing that, I mean, John Lennon did that. Paul McCartney did that, although they maintain pretty heavy British accents even in their singing, but
every single one of them, I mean, we're talking about people who have tried to drop an accent, who have tried to change their accent, but they can't unless they sing. And then it comes out that neutral accentless. But it's not just accents. Look at guys like Mel Tillis. He had a stammer so bad he could barely speak, but the man could sing. There was no stammer when he was singing at all. But he had a serious stutter when he tried to speak.
Yeah.
I know for some reason singing does something different. Maybe it's a different part of the brain or what have you. I don't know.
You're imitating and you're using the voice in a different, because right now we're working on.
But I don't know how much of imitation it is.
It is.
Because it's I think it's subconscious. I really do. Because you have people who are, you remember years ago, there was a song by a band called Shocking Blue. It's called Venus. I'm your Venus. I'm your fire, joy, desire. Yeah. None of them spoke English. Not a word. They were Dutch. Didn't speak a single word of English. They had to be phonetically taught how to speak those words. But when they sang them, there was zero accent.
Because it's a different scenario. Because and I'm pretty adamant about this because, okay. So
that's why I'm saying maybe it's a different part of the brain. I don't know how it works.
I'll use myself as an example. So I grew up in Miami, and there's classic blues bars that are no longer open because of changing landscape. But there's blues, here there was blues and whatnot, but not to the extent. There was pockets, but nowhere's to the extent that you would encounter that in the South or whatever across the United States. It really just, because here it's a melting pot of so many. So it's not like But when I sing the blues, I mean, I don't want to be pretentious here, but my reference point when singing, I'm no longer working like I'm talking to you right now at all. I am now impersonating. I am going into a different sort of state of it's the music world. And so if you're going to sing a blues song, there's things that I don't even know how to explain it. You use those techniques, and it ends up sounding like, let's say, the blues or
I get that, and I do understand that, but my point is the enunciation of the words become accentless all the way across the board. People who speak foreign languages, English as a second language, when they sing in English, they enunciate without that accent. Morris Albert, Feelings. He's from Brazil. English was not his first language. I don't think that I could be taught a song in Spanish and sing it without an accent. I think because it's a different language to me, it would still sound like some American guy trying to sing in Spanish. And would be horribly wrong. But when you take the same language, people from the South lose their Southern drawl. People from Texas, Louisiana, North Carolina, Georgia, they lose that Southern drawl.
Yeah.
Every single one of them. People from the UK lose whatever regional accent they have. People from Ireland lose that, unless they try to keep it on purpose.
They're working on, so two things. They're working on whatever genre. There's people that sing that, let's say you have the genre of blues or some sort of, I don't know, techno, rock, and you'll have people that are from whatever region, corner of the country or whatever, that can embody this genre and then sound and then that one and this and that, because you're no longer talking. This is a thing. Singing is not talking.
And that's what I was getting at when I said I don't know if it's a different part of the brain, because I think you're right. You are on a different level. And if you are trying to get that low guttural soul blues, you're not going to sing like this. I get that part. You are affecting a certain genre. You're trying to do that on purpose. But the fact that you're from South Carolina or New Hampshire or Washington or Arizona doesn't enter into it. You can't tell it. You can't tell what region somebody's from by the way they're singing, but you can sure tell it when they're speaking. That's all I'm.
Okay, so we're on the same page and stuff. Although it's a big subject and it's one that I don't think we've ever touched on. Let me add this final bit. We're running down the clock here, but I wanted to share this with you.
Okay.
I'm crazy with it, but I just want to share this with all of you guys that are here with us as well. There's a lot of music out there, concept albums that we've all, one that we like more than the other, and this and that. We've all done our share of music listening, I would safely assume. The other day I came across, YouTube is incredible. I came across a concept album that was incredibly, before I listened to it, I read up on it, and it was incredibly interesting. And so I listened to it, and I'm going to see if I can. It's called The Caretaker, Everywhere at the End of Time, stages 1 through 6, complete. It's a 6.5 hour.
Holy cow.
Album.
Holy cow.
Now, don't mind the time part. It's the idea of it. And here's the thing. The musicians involved in creating this album, the idea is the album starts with clarity, and the music is 1920s sort of. Do you remember that The Shining, where the protagonist walks into the bar and he's living in his insanity, and it's like a 1920s, 1930s ballroom, and the music is playing. It's that old school, This album is all that style of music. It starts with clarity, and as it progresses throughout, the notes become slightly, not enough for you to necessarily tell, erratic or different or swayed. And as it progresses, it's decomposing in a very slow way. And it's different songs, but it's slowly edging so that you lose time and perspective in a very interesting and disturbing way. And by the end, it's almost like deafening, or not deafening, but like murmurings and little synapses of clarity of the sounds, and then it goes into a muffled, and it just until it just decays. And it's talking about the album. The concept of it is what a human being goes through as they lose their grip on reality, and they're in those senile stages. And these people created this. It is incredibly disturbing. I listened to a little bit of it and moved around. It's not a journey that I want to take, although I did listen to it like this. It puts you in a mental where you're like, the music is old enough from an era that it gives you some sort of, but imagine a person sitting and just they're losing it. It's taking you through that. So I wanted to share that. So disturbing, but genius in a way, and yet disturbing. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share.
And again, I think what that is that's the classic definition of art. It's a performance piece that was made to explain, incite a reaction, share emotions, and make a statement. And it's subjective. It's up to us to enjoy it for what it is, or reject it for what it is, or not get it at all. Yeah. You can look at, you and I would have two different opinions of the Mona Lisa, even though we're looking at the same picture, or the same painting. And we could both agree that it's a masterpiece, but you would see different things that I wouldn't necessarily pick up, and I would see things that you wouldn't necessarily pick up. So I think that's, the classic definition of art.
For those inclined, at the very least, if you wanted to, it's worth dropping the YouTube needle. See, that's a phrase that if they were very literal, they'd say, heroin use, and so, even me saying that as a joke might be, so you can't, it's just like, it goes into like off the cliff. But you should drop, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't say anything. You have to say, I'm here. Well, here, now you're being very personal about it. So you can't use, at some point you have to just accept that there's words that might be in conflict in the world. At the very least, I suggest, if you're so inclined, to drop the YouTube needle on a couple of sections of that, just so you could see the overarching and what they're doing with the music and stuff. And just, it's mind-blowing. Disturbing for me is what it is. I would not sit through it, because I would not. Yeah, I would not.
Well, now this is your Reddit, so we'll go as long as you want to go. But my question for you is, why was it disturbing? Is there a personal thing involved in it that you just didn't like, or what?
No, it's not that it's disturbing because it's powerful. It's disturbing because I deem it, even the fact that I dropped the YouTube needle in a couple of spots, but read the synopsis of it and stuff, and just the whole thing, and the image that it has for the cover. It's a total package, and what's contained in there is on a subconscious. It's very disturbing because of a human losing
Well, did you find it? Well, did you find it threatening or just
No, not threatening, but sad
okay?
because of a human being. So it starts with clarity,
Uh-huh.
and then it does it in such gentle increments where you're listening to, it's just the whole concept is so well done, but the meaning behind it, in itself, it's not anything.
Okay.
But it's what they did was so powerful, but it's so horrible, like
Yeah.
for the soul. It's like, do you want to watch Faces of Death 10 times in a row, and stuff like that? So that's how I feel about it.
Okay.
But
I just wondered.
Yeah, I acknowledge it's brilliant.
Okay. I just wondered. All right.
Yeah.
I will drop the needle, as you say, and check out bits and pieces of it, but I can't sit through 6 hours. So
it's meant to do that. It's meant to. You should read the background.
I understand. I will. I'll look for it.
Yeah,
So.
it will be impactful. I mean, I would assume it would. You would. Yeah, I mean, just come up with that concept is insane. So
yeah. Okay. Well, it's kind of funny. We've been talking the whole time about technology and computers versus us listening and processing words and understanding words, and then you pulled out that phrase, drop the needle, and immediately thought, oh, they're going to think something nefarious about that. Whether it is or isn't, I mean, God only knows. But that brought up another topic to me, which was how we continue to use arcane phrases like that have absolutely no, they're just not appropriate anymore. For instance, we will still tell somebody, we're sitting there with our phone and we're shooting video of something happening, and we'll scream to our buddy, I got it on film. Well, there's no film involved.
Yeah.
But we don't have a name for, because I feel weird saying, yeah, I videoed that. I have to say, well, yeah, I shot some video of that, or yeah, I took some video of that.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't, the language hasn't caught up with the technology, I don't think, because we're still using the old language to describe something we're doing with the new technology that has outgrown the old technology.
Yeah, and we're on that path. We're on that trajectory, which actually ties into that concept album because we're on that trajectory, man.
But people understand that. People who have never ever used a film camera in life know what you mean when you say, yeah, I got it on film, or yeah, I'm taping this. Well, no, you're not taping it, because there hasn't been a video cassette in your house ever.
You want to try something really crazy, and I don't know if I haven't, but I haven't tried this. I thought of this years ago because I saw a situation where but if you see like young kids that were born sort of, I guess, recently or whatever, and you tell them, do an Elvis impersonation, just to a kid that you would have no. I'd be curious because I remember a situation, and I can't, but like they knew
who Elvis was.
When there's no real need to. So there's things, I guess basically I'm saying that there's things that are like part of the movement of time, at least for a certain amount of time, that people still, even if they're not associated, somehow it's part of the time. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know if you threw something out like that, if they would know, because Elvis is such a big icon of our time or past time.
Yeah. Or give a kid a rotary dial telephone and tell him to place a phone call to somebody.
Yeah.
That would be fun as well. Oh, well, it was just something that stood out when you said drop the needle. It made me think of that.
Oh, yeah.
Why are we still using phrases like that when they have absolutely no application to today? Oh, well, I think now is about the time we should say that you can check out our website if you like what you're listening to. Click that Wayback Machine button. Our website is trampledunderfootpodcast.com. It's sponsored by Steve Nealon over there at Harneal Media, Harneal. Steve's a one-man operation. He can hook you up with a website, with a web store. He can hook you up with merch providers and help you design merch. Do as much or as little as you would like. He's very personalized service, and he's the sponsor of Trampled Underfoot Podcast.com. You can also check us out over on the Facebooks. Just go over to Facebook and type in Trampled Underfoot Podcast. When we come up with these little discussions about certain videos or pictures or articles or what have you, we'll post links over there on our Facebook page so you can check them out yourself. That's Trampled Underfoot Podcast on Facebook.
All right. Well, I mean, that was perfect. We've run the usual. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. Listen, thanks for hanging out with us. And like always, if you have any show ideas, drop them over there on the Trampled Underfoot Podcast on Facebook. And we'll catch you next week. Have a good one.